Perhaps in part to outdo Silence the World and subvert expectations on what exactly we thought was the longest track on the album with Exile. Along the Way is clocking in at 8 minutes, shortly over that by about 4 seconds, so this is a substantially long work. But it means perhaps more time in one session to enjoy Demon Hunter, which Exiles at this point has been a beautiful testament to their talents and why I've loved them so much over my 12-year relationship with them as a band. Even though they've had a 20-year tenure, I absolutely have loved this group. If you're not familiar with them and this is a first introduction, you're probably going to like this, I'm sure. Every track thus far in Exile, in my opinion, has been exquisite to a different factor, whether it be the band's talents musically, or their lyrical inspiration, or their messages, or maybe even, in some cases, more of an experimental nature among some of their works. There's a real fresh sound to this, but if you're not familiar with them, mainstays in the Christian metal scene, like I said, 20-year tenure, they're very well known, and I'm sure, again, by secular extensions as well, from those outside of perhaps Christian music markets and audiences, they're very well respected. Beautiful, great metal talents. I'm absolutely in love with them, and I've been for a long time. And Exile, like I said, has been wonderful to cover in its entirety. As I told you I would a while back, and I am now making good on that promise that I'm way overdue on making. But, for me, like I've said, I've tried to make music a mainstay on this channel. It wasn't in the beginning when I founded it in regards to the entertainment ventures of what I spotlight here. It's been an aspiration of mine for a long time. And now with the 2022 year done, I've managed to bring that into greater focus, and with 2023, that's only going to accelerate. In particular as well, with plenty of artists I have yet to catch up on, and many on the list I have yet to cover and possibly get first introductions to. But Demon Hunter, for me, like I've said, long relationship. They're an established name within my playlist. I absolutely love their music. And I told you, with Exile, I did want to cover this album in its entirety, which is rare. I don't often do that, in particular because I have so many artists that I want to gauge. And these videos do take time to make as well as publish and produce. There's a whole process to it. But in certain cases, I make exceptions. And with Demon Hunter, I've always wanted to bring them on the channel in some capacity. With Exile, that's been an opportunity. And in fact, with this, with my coverage, you're getting the full scope, not just with Exile in the Standard Edition, which we're sort of capping off in this video with Along the Way. If you bought the Standard release, or even if you haven't yet, that's what you're looking at, this would be the end concluding track. But I am giving you the full breakdown because I did buy the deluxe package, so I have access to the 2 bonus tracks as well on that release. So you're getting the full scope with me. That's how you have to enjoy Demon Hunter, really. In the years we've learned this since, that is the key way, because then you get the full understanding. And it's been an absolute treat, like I said, to get that expanded perspective and perhaps in part share that with you. Again, from the standpoint of somebody who's very knowledgeable over 12 years of accessing their content. So let's continue our journey through Exile as we reach now the conclusion of a standard release with Along the Way. Again, these are all the mainstream tracks I want to cover thus far. The next 2 videos I have coming, those are exclusive to Deluxe Edition, which I would recommend if you are inspired by this track. And maybe for some of you, like I said, this is a fresh introduction. I hope you come to love this group as much as I have. I can definitely, like I said, if you haven't listened to them, go back and listen to maybe the entirety of Exile as well as their library. You will love them, I promise you. If you're a big metalhead like me, or maybe if you're not, they got some songs that I think do appeal to a broad taste. And like I've said, I truly respect them, not just as very talented artists, but again, legends in the Christian metal scene. They are very open about their faith in their songs, and this album is no exception. It really isn't. In fact, I think it's taken on a more strident focus here. So let's get a perspective, again, like I said, with the longest track on the album at a little over 8 minutes, by a couple seconds, Along the Way. I'm going to go ahead and cue up the song, and for those of you who this is a first introduction to not only perhaps Demon Hunter, but maybe more so the way I format my videos in regards to music coverage, I do try and accommodate every audience perspective that I can in regard to what you want to see from music reactions. So for me, or maybe just even accessing music content in a first listen. So for you, if you're somebody that likes to read along with the message of the piece, you'd like to have the lyrics, available to you, I will have those available in the video. They will track along with the piece as we proceed forward. All right, through it. Without further ado, Along the Way. Here we go. Oh, hang on. Let me get it in time here. Okay. 8 minutes. This is going to be a long one. So we're capping off the album again, going in the more ballad direction, perhaps. That would fit with the tone of the piece. And forgive me if I'm looking down, by the way. I've got the lyrics available in a little booklet. We'll talk about that more in a minute if you're not familiar with it. I've made mention of it many times before in the context of Exile. Sounds a lot like Silence the World, to be honest with you. It's interesting that the two longest tracks have a very similar vibe. I like the sentimental life journey here. It makes sense. Again, that's sort of the topic of choice here. And it fits well with the tone of the piece. I like this incline here. That's a good line. And Along the Way really is a great title. It's meshed so well with the piece in identity. That's really sweet. I like that. I like that section there. Great writing as always. And with Ryan's vocal talents, it really is a great meshing. Good break and good growth after too. Beautiful tracking of this piece. I'm expecting, as I'm looking at the lyrics here, this is going to be more instrumental heavy coming up. I don't know. We still got about nearly a little over 4.5 minutes to go. It's a really long piece. Okay. Bit of a tense break here. Interesting. Bit disassociated from the introduction with the two first chorus sections. Interesting. I like the background placement of that verse. Great transition though. You know, this really feels like a good road trip song. I'm looking at the identity of the piece and I'm like, in vision you've matched the lyrics quite well in tone. This really dips into ballad territory. You know, I find it to be, again, a really good sentimental piece. And I do think it's definitely got a broad taste of it, too. Still another 2 minutes to go. I wonder where this ending is going to take us. The guitar riff section. I'm wondering if they're going to fit in another rendition of the chorus. Probably not. I don't know. I'm looking at the length in comparison to other durations previous. I'm not sure. This is a good outro to the standard album. In tone, the acceleration here, it's a good, really good fit. Keeps the track in concentration more ballad focused, but it is a nice reference back to the more aggressive side. I like the structure here. Good progression. Okay, now it really feels like we're winding down here. Boy, the ending really took its time. Like I said, this is a good road trip song. And that perfectly matches with what Ryan's articulated in terms of the inspiration of the piece. It's good. It's a very smooth, good concluding work, in my opinion. Like I said in previous videos, and I did make reference to this at the beginning of this particular track, I spent a lot of time looking down, as you could tell. I'm reading the booklet in which the lyrics were featured, and I've said in the past that is the way to enjoy this. So if you liked that track and you want to be able to enjoy Exile in the more expanded form, because I will be consulting the last 2 bonus tracks to become part of the deluxe edition, that is the best way to enjoy it, because in particular focus is this booklet, which I absolutely love, not only in the way I approach music coverage, but also as a Demon Hunter fan. And having also accustomed myself to, very recently, the Outlive and War and Peace expansions in terms of the deluxe editions once I acquired those, and it take a lot of money. I'm ashamed to admit the total of how much I spent. But, as a reference to give you, I guess, a good Demon Hunter picture. But even for me, as somebody who is a very well-versed fan on their music, I realized that I just didn't really understand the dimension of their pieces in regard to a lyrical inspiration, specifically on the previous free albums that I've mentioned. The latter of which being dual release. This has really helped in regard to how I've seen Exile. And in the beginning, I knew it would be good from a musical perspective because, again, I'm very well versed in Demon Hunter's talents. But having that inspiration, it's so cool for me to be able to get into the mindset of the artist and the way they envisioned their visions of the pieces. It gives you an added respect. And with along the way, it's not only a very good concluding piece to the overall album if you choose to buy the standard issue. This definitely fits, I would say, in energy, and they've also had tracks like this in other previous releases that have utilized the same feeling. But in terms of meshing this with what Ryan's speaking of in regard to these biography sessions, as I said again, in the booklet are key. You not only get the lyrics presented to you, but also these accountings from the artist, as well as perhaps some, and they've never done this before, mini-scripts about the track's perspective on a musical level. I've never seen that in any of the previous deluxe edition packs. That's a new addition. I really like that too. As somebody who's a musical connoisseur, it gives me a window into how music is designed. At least in some of the groups that I follow. But Ryan describes, at least the scope of this track, the idea, I guess, formulated during a trip from Nashville to Seattle, a road trip. That's quite a long drive. Oh my. Dang right indeed. I'm pulling a quote here. The long drive home gave me a lot of time to think and write. Like I said, I think this is quite a contemplative song, and it's great for perhaps if you're just, in that same situation. It's a great play. It's sustained, it flows, tracks very nicely, has an even pacing all the way through. I mean, the song in itself shows a good vision. You can kind of read that along with the piece. Now, the booklet expresses 2 different identities for the song. If you are looking at the lyrics, and this is kind of the first inclination of what I would go with too, if you're looking at it from the perspective of the song is describing a Where does he mention it? Because I like the way he puts it better than me. The death of self, it's self-identity, maybe a restoration process. That could be one applied meaning. There's a double meaning to this. Or you could look at it as a contemplative path through life itself. That's another very valid meaning. And reading the lyrics as the song proceeded, yeah, you feel that energy. And again, this is another song where I've said this now with respect to like a bunch of their tracks on this album, especially in covering it in full today. It's not often that I see tone of music mesh so well with lyrical vision. And yet, with so many pieces on this album, I feel like there's just such a wonderful blend among the tracks in materializing focus of tone. With this piece, it really does feel like we're sort of taking a course through life, doesn't it? Like I said, a road trip feeling. It's evoked really well in, I think, the duration, which also was stated, I didn't realize this, that it's not only the longest song on the album, but apparently their longest song to date. Or at least that's what I would imagine they could be more informed of that, rather than me taking a, statement at face value. But I would believe that. Again, I thought Silence the World was substantive in its duration, but this is... you've outdone that one. Anyway, I think it's a really good piece. And again, the idea of blending this feeling, again, of a road trip, or you could say a path through life, which I often think about, just on the back end when I've, got time to myself. I'm often contemplating my life's desires in conjunction to being mortal, right? And existing in a temporal space where one day, as any human being knows, death is a part of the end route of at least this life, right? But I mean, I've made this no secret on the channel. Like I have in respect to Demon Hunter coverage, I am an outspoken Christian. So, for me, there is that eternal destination, but in the temporal sense, death is an eventuality. And I think this song, again, just mimics that feeling very well of where I sit emotionally and rationalizing my human self from the eternal and a phase of life that can't be made known to me in the temporal sense. I mean, you can certainly imagine it, but you can't see it for yourself. You can only envision life in the sense of the world and mesh your desires to understanding that you're only human, right? And with that comes along an existence limitation. And I think that also flows in consideration even in the interpretation of the album, specifically on that one theme. Again, like I said, there's two different perspectives, and Demon Hunter has spoken to that being in intention. But even in spirit of maybe the other tracks, right? For example, I've said in respect to Exile, there's a large dimension of this album that is commentating on the presence of social media in our world from a negative standpoint, or you could say distractions of time. This album has also brought up different issues as well. But social media has been a key focus in many of the other tracks, including the next one and the first of the bonus editions, Sleepwalker. That is also its key identity, I guess, from what it's articulating about, or at least one of the perspectives. But this piece itself, again, the feeling of satisfying dreams and ambitions and meshing that with the understanding that, your mortality does define you and you're limited to that. I think it blends very well in interpretation. Again, I think this song, like many others on Exile thus far, has a wonderful blend between its music and the tone of the pieces. I think it's in this wonderful space, in my opinion. It's quite an adventurous listen. I mean, it's a long listen, but like I said, great for road trips, or great for contemplating perhaps your own journey through life up until death. But again, even as just a conclusion of an album, in the standard edition's respect, I think it's incredibly satisfying. It's a very beautiful listen. What are your guys' thoughts on it? For those of you, this is the first introduction. This is more along the lines of Demon Hunter's ballad type music. And again, they got quite a range to their music. And you could maybe hear some more of that aggressive edge of what they're known for in the metal scene subtly coming into the presence at the end of a track. Again, like I said, it works for a wonderful tie-in. But if you're curious again to see more of a range of their style, I would consult the entirety of the work as well as perhaps some of their previous releases. Again, you will thank me. They're an incredible talent. And for those of you who are longtime Demon Hunter fans, what were your feelings on that track? The, according to them, longest track to date of Demon Hunter's tenure. Yeah, again, I thought Silence the World as long. And again, even those two tracks on Sound had a wonderful blend to one another. It certainly takes its time, but it's interesting. It's a good release. Let me know what your thoughts are down below on the piece. I'd love to hear perhaps your perspective should you wish to disclose it. Again, I feel it's a wonderful concluding work, and it definitely embodies the spirit of what Ryan was talking about, I guess, in his meandering journey from Nashville to Seattle. Yeah, that gives you a lot of time to think, especially if you're driving. I wouldn't take that trip myself. More power to you. And maybe ideas, can be birthed out of that, right? Like, for example, Along the Way, I think it's a wonderful translation of Ryan's lyric writing expertise, in my opinion. I truly do admire him as a writer. And even just as a singer, his vocals are always a wonderful talent to listen to. But Demon Hunter, just as a band, I've had so much of an enjoying time with. So in the context of Exile as a standard edition, again, I'm going to expand on this in the next 2 videos in regard to the deluxe, but Exile is thus far what the mainstream release has to feature is a wonderful album. Really good collection of tracks, in my opinion, and very interesting to listen to in conjunction to other Demon Hunter releases. It is an incredibly dynamic entry. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.